everyone, I'm here now with Jay Deachman. Jay is a drummer in the local Vancouver scene, and he's been teaching, playing for many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing 37 years, but I turned pro. I started doing it for like money 25 years ago or so.
Wow.
So yeah.
So he's got a lot of experience.
When I was 15, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of experience that you can hopefully share with us. And this is all based off of something I did a little while ago. I asked, like, we have a following. I have a following online through Facebook, and so I asked those people, how many of you want to play drums for a living?
Yeah.
Do shows and stuff like that. And I was so surprised that over half of the people that responded, I got over 500 responses.
Yeah.
250 said they want to do it.
Really?
And
yeah.
like I was guessing, you know, okay, 80% of them are going to want to do it for a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, 20% of them are going to want to do it for a living. But
yeah.
It's amazing how many people want to do what you do.
Yeah.
And so I thought about, well, I could interview drummers who are been on the tour bus and that. And I know you've done a lot of that as well. But I'm not really looking for like how to be a drummer in a famous band and make a ton of money. I'm more looking for like how to like work in the scene and kind of do what you guys do, because I know it's a lot of times it's a grind, and so I want to try to hit some of those points.
Sure.
So, cool.
Right on.
Okay, so I just have a bunch of questions I'll fire at you, and feel free to...
Absolutely, man.
Okay, so you said you've been playing drums professionally for 25 years?
Yeah, and it might even be a little more, because I'm 43 now, so 27, 28. So I started playing in the bars, just cover tunes, when I was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Crazy.
Yeah. Why? Why did you start playing drums?
Oh, man. You know, I don't really remember, honestly, not playing drums. I don't really have a recollection of not doing it.
Yeah.
And so it seemed just like a natural progression. It was just like what we did next. And then, and this was in like, so it would have been like around 84, 85, 1984, 1985 when I started playing in the bars and stuff. And that was a very different time, you know, so it was just like I was pretty good for my age. And me and another guitar player who was my best friend, John Dillabo, we you know, were really good in the high school, and so like somebody found us and we're like, oh, we're taking you guys and we're gonna, like, you know, we need a guitar player and a drummer, and so we started doing it, you know.
So you never decided, oh, I want to be a drummer?
No, there was a decision like that later, because so when you're 15, you know, you're just kind of going along with it. So I was just kind of going along with it. And then with John and I, and he's still one of the best guitar players I've ever played with in my life. And with him and I, we ended up, when we were 18, 19, we were playing in the Ottawa scene at the time where I went to high school. And we got kind of picked up by this guy who had he had a local band, but he eventually got it signed to Geffen in LA. And so when I was 18, you know, we ended up going down to Los Angeles and going through that whole thing. And after that kind of fell apart, and I got fired from that gig because my hair wasn't long enough. So my hair, when you know, this is 1988, 89, my hair would top out here and wouldn't go any longer. And I know you're looking at my head like he had hair, but you know, like it went this long here, and then they wanted it to go longer, but it just never went longer.
That's why you got fired?
Yeah, that's why I got fired. I remember the A&R chick was Vicky Hamilton over at Geffen, was like, you know, why he's amazing, like, and he hasn't asked us for money. Like, I didn't know I should have gotten paid. Like, I didn't have any idea. So I came back to Ottawa after that, and I was kind of like, you know, 19, 20, and I started a couple other bands, but I was getting really tired of, you know, like, I had much more of a work ethic than the other people in these bands, and I wasn't getting surrounded by the right people. So I decided to run away from Ottawa, and my mom at the time lived in Sweden. So I went and lived with my mom in '91, and just kind of like stayed up in Sweden for a year, and went around Europe a little bit, and I started kind of getting into it again, you know what I mean, and really getting like inspired. And I was standing on a cliff in Greece, looking at the water coming in, just having a personal moment, all to my own, way on top of this cliff, kind of going, well, what are you gonna do? You know, because I did have a kind of an idea that I wanted to be an advertising copywriter. I wanted to be in the creative world of advertising. I kind of have an interest in that, and as well political science. So I was just kind of like, what are you gonna do? You know, and I was like, I just kind of, for some reason, on that cliff, and I can hardly really remember like the thought process, but I remember on that cliff, I was like, let's do this. let's do this. You know, let's jump off this cliff into that ocean and swim. You know, and so I got back to Sweden. I told my mom, you know, that I kind of had this epiphany that I wanted to really go for it. And she's like, well, if you want to go for it, then you have to go to school. And I'll pay for you to go to school, but it has to be the best school. And so up in Sweden, I got like Musicians Institute and the Grove School and the Collective to send me brochures, and I went through them, and I kind of like, you know, we didn't have internet, right? So, I mean, you're kind of like doing whatever research you can, you know. And I just loved the vibe of the Collective in New York City, and I love the idea of going to New York City. I'd already been to Los Angeles. I'd already kind of been in this place where everybody wants to be famous, and the idea of going to somewhere where everybody just wants to be the best at what they do was really attractive to me. So I you know, applied, I auditioned, and I got into their 3-month program and ended up staying for 5 months. And I graduated and then stayed for like another 2 months at the Collective in New York City, and really honed my skills outside of rock drumming there. And, you know, started staying with Jim Chapin there, started staying with like Dom Famularo and that kind of stuff. And so that was really the catalyst that allowed me to have the technical tools I needed to then approach it. And then after that, I moved here to Vancouver.
And then like, would you consider yourself a professional when you were in New York, or when you moved here and you started getting paid? Is that when you...
Yeah, I consider being a professional is getting paid. Like that, and I consider that as well with my resume and with my credit list. I don't put credits. I've played with some, you know, I always say I've played with some bands that you've heard of, and I've played with some artists that you haven't. But, you know, I only put the credits up of the ones that I got paid for. Not like, because there's been like countless like jams and countless sit-ins, and, you know, where I've played with some really big names. But, you know, I don't feel right putting that on my resume. You know what I mean? Like, I only put the credits. I only put stuff where there was an exchange of commerce.
Cool. And so as far as endorsements go now, what are you currently using?
So, and I mean, it's like, that's a big thing. And I love that you bring that up, because that's something that I think a lot of people have the wrong idea about. So I currently am endorsed by Yamaha drums, Zildjian cymbals, and D'Addario products. So that's ProMark sticks, Pure Sound snare wires, and Evans drum heads. And those are my main endorsees. And I've been with... well, I played Yamaha drums since I was a kid. My first drum set was a Yamaha 8000 series, so I think I was like 12, 11, you know. And so I've been with them, you know. I guess I got signed to Yamaha first in '92, and then all the other endorsements came in 1995. But they all approached me, right? I didn't actively go out and get endorsements. And I mean, like, we were just in NAMM together, and I would run into guys, and they'd be like, you know, like, I'd see one of the guys from ProMark, and they'd be like, oh, I'm a ProMark endorser as well. Are you endorsed by the U.S. or the Canadian? And I'm like, oh, both, I guess. You know, I didn't even think about it. He's like, yeah, me too. Well, the guy that said this to me doesn't play any gigs. So, I was just like, well, wow, okay. You know, and I just think it's kind of weird. I think a lot of people kind of get it kind of backwards. They're like, well, I'll get the endorsements, and then that'll put me into that world where I can get those gigs. That's not how it works. You get the gigs, and then you start going up the gig tree, and then finally you get a main gig, like a gig that for me, it was Copyright in 2001, because they did arena tours and all that kind of thing. So, and they were on BMG, and that for me was the big one. That then now you're in that team. Okay, now you got accepted in the NHL. Now you're playing in that league. But you know, like there's a process to it, and it's kind of like you know, it's a tough road to get to that process. But that's to me, that's where you can start playing there. And when you get to that point, then the companies that you love, the companies that you're playing already, well, they know about you. You know what I mean? And so they say, look, I see that you're using. Yeah, I mean, Zildjian, for instance, like, saw me doing clinics for a thing called Music BC or Music West. Do you remember that? Sorry, Music West. And I was doing clinics for another company when the vice president of Zildjian and another vice president of Zildjian, I'd met Armand years ago, like in New York, and I knew like Lenny DiMuzio and John DeChristopher and everything. And they came up to me and they saw me playing this other cymbal company, and they were like, we know you know Mr. Zildjian. Like, why are you, we know you love our product. Why are you playing these other cymbals? And I was like, well, Canada is tough and that kind of thing. They're like, give us some stuff. And so I just gave them stuff, and a week later I had a contract with Zildjian.
Wow.
I mean, you know, so that's the thing with endorsements. I think people are under the wrong idea that if I get these endorsements, I'll be considered a top-level drummer and I'll be open to those gigs. Whereas, like, you know, Beyonce doesn't give a crap what kind of drumsticks you play.
Yeah.
She cares that you come and you deliver. You know what I mean? And so that's where I think a lot of guys and a lot of drummers, pardon me, can really, you can take the time that you were going to invest into trying to get an endorsement and put it towards your skills. And that's time well spent.
Cool. So you talked about the band Copyright, and so my next question was the most exciting gig that you've ever had. Is that the kind of the peak or the?
No, there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
Wow, what a great question. Obviously, that was very exciting to be playing the arenas and to live on the tour bus, and that was kind of like one of the first times I got to do that. But I mean, I got to fill in with Loverboy once for Maddie.
Yeah.
You know, at this arena in Quebec City, 6,000 screaming maniacs.
Yeah.
You know, and that I'm playing with this band that I listened to when I was like 10. You know, like, so that was a peak. You know, playing with the guys in the Theory of a Deadman, that was a peak in a different way. You know, like, because you're in the moment. You're doing it with like one of the bands that's on MTV when there was MTV. You know, and we're doing all like arenas again and that kind of thing. Same with, you know, filling in with Default, like. You know, I mean, like, there's just so many, and there's been so many recording instances, and I don't really pause and reflect, to tell you the honest truth. I don't ever, like, I mean, it's one of those things I've got to kind of like do, but I'm always looking at what's next, and I'm always planning on what's next. Like, I mean, I showed up today, and I'm talking about my band's doing a video on Monday and all the stuff going into that, so I very rarely kind of like sit back, and I don't pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
I don't like go, oh, good job, you're up there. I don't ever do anything like that. It's I enjoy the moment, and then I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I do remember once with Copyright, we were playing for the biggest crowd I've ever played in, and it was at the Forks in Winnipeg on Canada Day, and there were 55,000 people in the audience, and I'm slamming, like, I'm, you know, because when you play those big crowds, the people at the back, they don't want to see your perfect molar. They don't want to see, they don't care. Like, I mean, they want to see you play drums the way they imagined they'd play drums if they were playing it. So I'm using these big arm motions, you know, all this kind of stuff. I mean, you're working up there. So I'm playing, and I start to see people getting dragged out of the front, like limp. Like, you know, the crowd's just starting to, like, bounce, and they're starting to move against the barricade. And I see them dragging out people, and I'm, like, sitting there like, do I stop? Like, you know, because in a way, I'm kind of doing this. Because I'm sitting there slamming the beat out. Everyone's doing this, and I'm like, kind of looking around to my sides, like, are we, like, stopping? Because people are getting hurt. Like, this is bad. And we ended up not stopping. They you know, the next song was quite a bit more demure, so everyone calmed down. But that, I do remember that. I do remember, like, that, just looking out and seeing 55,000 people and going, wow, that's a lot of people.
Crazy. It's pretty crazy.
You know, so there's a lot.
Yeah. So what's, as far as playing drums professionally, you've been doing it 25 years, you said, what's like the hardest thing?
You know, there's certain things, like, if you get into the songwriting things, so you get residuals. So 4 times a year you get a nice check and that kind of thing. But, you know, like, I've got to figure out in April how I'm going to get paid. You know, like, what, I don't know where my, you know, monthly sum is going to come in April. I mean, you know, there'll be some teaching, there'll be some drumeo. Am I going to, like, there's a couple of bands I might be touring with, like, but, you know, so it's that constant going out for the next thing. Like, I don't stop and relax.
Does that excite you, though, or like, do you ever get down on that, or do you like doing that? Do you like the chase?
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, here's the thing, and I can put it, I say this all the time, and there's even like a guy doing some seminars for different music things, Brian Thompson, and he uses this, and he credits me, thank goodness. But I've always said, because I had to come up with something to say, because after shows and that kind of thing, I do get drummers coming up to me and going like, yeah, you know, like, how do you do it? You know, and I'm always like, you know, let's do it. Like move to a big city. Like I was talking to Aaron Edgar, one of the best drummers in Canada.
Yeah.
And I'm going, come on out to Vancouver. And I heard somebody at the table was like, he's going to get all the gigs. I'm like, there's room for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, come on out here. You know, there's gigs that are not available to me that he'll get. You know, and so I have a real inclusive feeling about people that want to do it. And I always say, you have to have 3 things in order to be successful at anything. Mm-hmm. Those are, don't suck, be cool, and have drive. And I don't care if you want to be a lawyer or if you want to be a member of parliament or whatever it is you want to do. You can't suck, and you have to be cool, and you have to have drive. And I break them down. Don't suck. I mean, you think that's fairly obvious, but you have to have your stuff together.
Yeah. You
have to be able to, I'm a proponent, you have to be able to read. You have to have your music theory together so you're not like an idiot sitting in a rehearsal and you don't know when they start talking about going to the D minor, you don't know what they're talking about. You have to know all that stuff. You have to have your technique together. You have to have different styles together. You have to be able to be in a physical position where you can play very quietly in a restaurant or super loud in an arena. All your technique stuff, there can't be any holes in your technique. You know, and for me, like with drummers, we tend to get too much in the mathematics, and we tend to get too much because we can hold on to that.
Yeah.
So we get into that world. We start practicing on playing 5/4 and that kind of stuff, and those are things that don't get you hired. They get you respect from other drummers, but you know, I kind of like really in my technique, I kind of put a real emphasis on feel, and I have a feeling that although I work with a click, that time is elastic. And where I push and pull within a beat, within a bar, gives that groove that everyone always talks about.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that I'm playing the song. If I'm working in a studio or whatever, I have the lyric sheet up. I have a chart if I need it, but I like having the lyric sheet because I want to play what the lyrics are about.
Yeah.
And so because I'm more concerned, you can even say I'm more concerned with impressing songwriters than drummers. I think that's one of the reasons I work, you know, is I'm not kind of like, you know, because songwriters can be put off if you're too geeky and too busy, and you know, I rarely show up with a double pedal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like they see it, they're like, you're not going to play that all over my ballad.
They
and
get
it's like,
scared.
No.
I've
Yeah,
done that before.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, so I make sure I bring the kit. So that's all in the don't suck thing.
Yeah.
I make sure I do not suck. Be cool. If I'm living on a tour bus with you, or if you and I are stuck in a studio, I have to work with you one-on-one all the time. You know, I can't be a grating personality. I have to be engaging, I have to be friendly, I have to be positive, I have to bring a really good energy to the things I'm doing, and be somebody that people want to be around. And that's something that a lot of people don't get. Like they'll have their techniques like flawless. Their drumming will be amazing, but they don't like know how to like deal with people. Like they just don't know how to make people relaxed around them and make people artistic and make people creative around them. Yeah. You know, like you have to bring that to a table. If you're playing cover songs, you know, in bars like 3 nights a week, you won't get hired if you show up and you're kind of like, here we are again. Here we're playing Mustang Sally. If you're that guy, man, you're going to be out of a gig. You've got to show up and you've got to be, this is great, and let's do this, guys, and let's have fun. Look, we're making money. Here we go, you know. And just be positive like that. People, I don't think people understand like how important that is. As well, that translates into the elusive networking. Everyone talks about networking. Well, to be somebody who networks with others, you have to be kind of chill.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, at the NAMM show, I bet you had a lot of people like just passing you stuff and getting kind of on you and that kind of stuff, and you're not right. You're not necessarily like, oh, here's my card, okay, cool, and you put it with the others. Whereas I'm going to come up to you and say, dude, I love your work. Remember, I sent you an email once about saying that I love your work ethic and I love your work. I sent you an email like years ago, just saying keep up the good work kind of thing. And that was networking. That was me going like, but I was paying you a true compliment. I really felt that, but I took the time out to tell you, drummer to drummer, I love your work and I love what you're doing. Now years later, we're working together, but maybe it wasn't that one email that kind of, Jay's my guy and that kind of thing. But then you heard from other friends that I was cool and now we're working together. It's about that relationship. we developed a relationship. Like, you know, any producer or artist, whatever, they know what they can get you, you know, but they just want to know that it's a cool hang, and that's networking. It's part of being cool.
I agree.
All right, and the last thing, have drive. I will outwork anybody. You know, I do some seminars here at Nimbus, you know, for the music business class for a bunch of, you know, wonderful 20-year-olds that are like, want to come into the business. And I'm like, good for you. I'm a bulldog. Like, I do not stop. You know, so I don't have any other distractions. I don't do anything else. It's for me. I don't realize I'm completely one-dimensional. But I don't. It doesn't bother me. You know, it doesn't bother me that I don't play softball on weekends or anything like that. Like, I'm a bulldog, and so you have to have that unending drive where you will not accept anything less, and you just go, 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 go. Because if you don't, that guy over there does.
Yeah.
And we see that. We see guys that are really, really technically powerful, amazing drummers. They're really cool. They're nice guys to hang with. But if they don't wake up hungry, you know, they don't get the gigs.
Yeah.
They don't get to that next level. And, you know, that next level might be, for people, might be, I want to play in a cover band on weekends. That next level might be for people like me. Like, I want to, you know, be in arenas and do at the absolute top of the pinnacle of the world.
Yeah.
But depending on what those are, to get there, you have to have the drive to get there. You know.
And is that your goal?
Oh, sure, it always is.
Like, is that the one thing you're focusing on now?
But I've always focused on that.
Okay, yeah.
You know, so I mean, like, and I've played in you know, I've played in those worlds. So like, it's like, for me, like, and that's the other thing that I get used to. Now I know very few guys get that gig and just coast up there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I work with some of the best drummers in the world. I work with Kurt Biscara in the studio, who's now with Sarah McLachlan, but he's played with Mick Jagger. He's played with some of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
It goes like this. You know, like when Sarah comes home and goes, I don't feel like touring for a year, you know, you got to find the next thing. So he's out there and he's trying to find, like, you know, he ended up with a French artist, like, over in Europe for a while. I mean, like, you know, like, that's the thing. And when you get to know the drummers that you respect, and that guy, you see that very few of them are sitting back and just chill. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
They're
very
working.
few of them have that kind of money to just hang out. So, you know, like, that work ethic and that goal is you know, it is intangible. It is the thing that you have to have.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Biggest mistake you've ever made?
Oh. I don't, again, because I don't, the biggest mistake I ever made, because I don't sit there and relish the past and sit on the past, I don't know what I could tell you. I don't know, and that doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes, but it means when I do make mistakes, there hasn't been any colossal career-ending mistakes. But when I do make mistakes, I accept them and move on immediately. Or when something doesn't go my way, if I don't get an audition, or if I don't get, you know, if I don't get the audition, I don't dwell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if it's something I've got to fix, if it's something that's not happening with me, that I've got to get together, then undoubtedly I will get it together. But I don't, you know, I don't know of any mistakes. That sounds terrible.
No, it's fine. I know what you're saying. You're not saying you haven't made mistakes. You're just saying there's maybe not like one turning point mistake or anything.
No.
Like, everyone probably does things they wish they wouldn't have done.
Well, I mean, but the thing is that regret is eats at you.
Yeah.
You know, like people, like, for instance, that you know, like when I know people in the music industry, for instance, they're like, you know, like, this grind is tough. I'd like to have a family with my wife. I'd like to kind of pull myself away and kind of not get off the road if they're touring all the time or whatever. Maybe they lost a really big gig. Like I've seen regret really eat at people, as opposed to just like accept, understand, and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Any negative energy like that, it will, man, you got to get rid of it immediately.
We have this thing. We have to put this in if we don't want. But we have this thing in our business, because when we do like a launch a product or anything like that, we Rick's thing. He writes up something called a post-mortem. You
Okay.
ever heard of that?
All right.
And it's like, if we were to be making a mistake,
Yeah.
what would that be? And so we write down what it would look like after we launched this product, and we write down all the things that went wrong. And
That
then we
did
say,
go wrong.
or that could have gone
Or
wrong.
could have gone wrong.
Like, oh, we only sell, 100 units.
3.
Or we only, there's all these different things that the website goes down
Yeah.
because of too much traffic or whatever.
Yeah.
You write that all down, and then before you even get to the point where you launch it, you fix those things.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And so you're still thinking about mistakes. It's along those lines, but you're trying to correct them before you make them. So I think maybe you more have that mindset. Maybe even if it's subconscious, where you're trying to not make mistakes and almost like looking ahead.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so difficult because like there's so many times in this business where you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with psychoanalysis, you're dealing with like a lot of times if you don't get a gig, it's not something you can fix. It was just a vibe. Like I thought it was brilliant how Dream Theater put up all those auditions. Mm-hmm. For the drum chair in Dream Theater, because that's what auditions are like, and that was easily one of the hardest I've ever witnessed, right?
Yeah.
But it was great because I mean, you really got to see what the process is like from outside. Mm-hmm. Those are the best drummers in the world, and they have to choose 1 out of 7. There wasn't a guy in there that couldn't do that gig.
Yeah.
But I think we could all see when we watched it, there was just something extra with Mike. Or just something extra with Mangini. There was like, they're all from Boston, so they had like the hang going on. They already kind of knew each other. Like there was all these, unquantifiable like things that went into their choice for Mike, and he just felt right. Does that mean Thomas Lang sucks? Hell no.
Yeah.
It just means he wasn't right for that gig. So I mean, like, that's what I mean also by moving on. If something doesn't work out, if you have put all your eggs, I hope I get this gig, and you audition for that gig and you don't get it, man, you got to just let it go. I mean, if that happens to me, I get bummed, but for a day. You
don't think looking at it like, oh, what could I have done better to get the gig?
I don't think there's anything you could do. Could Thomas Lang suddenly be from Boston?
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying
no.
That's a very unique situation.
No, that's what it is. Yeah. So it could be like for copyright, for instance. Okay, so I auditioned against 33 other drummers to get that gig, and it became between me and another guy. And the other guy, they just liked the fact. They told me afterwards they liked the fact that I had already been signed to Geffen and already been to LA, and because they were signed to Geffen before, so we just had that thing,
Yeah.
Well, this other drummer who's fantastic can't suddenly go and have being signed to Geffen in his past. So he didn't make a mistake. There was nothing he did wrong. There was just this intangible thing that got the gig. If you see that you made an error, fix that error immediately.
Yeah.
If you feel it was something in your playing. If you showed up to an audition and they put a piece of music in front of you, you can't read it, you got to fix that.
Yeah.
But I think being proactive is so important. I remember back it was after New York, but I think it was before stuff started happening. So it would have been like 94, 93. And I remember Dom Famularo, who's just like an ambassador to all drummers.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched how many drummers go up to him and be like, I want to make it in the music business, how do I do it? And they're asking a guy that made his career out of thin air.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing what Dom Famularo was doing before Dom did it.
Yeah.
Go and do these clinics, but with a sense of entertainment, with a sense of old school, like vaudevillian kind of thing going on. No one was doing that. He made that career out of thin air, and he brought it to the world. And then there's these guys that are like, how do I get in a big band? And he doesn't have an answer. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I was one of those guys, and because I'd studied with him, I kind of said like, I get kind of like bummed out, and I want to try to get up there and be one of those guys, and I don't know how. And he said, read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And I found that book a turning point. I was so inspired by that book. I bought that book and I recommend it to anybody, and I read it with a highlighter. And I sit there, and if I read a part in that book that inspired me, I'd highlight it for future reference. And that book is now tattered. The pages are and there's highlights all over it, and I'll still go back to it because in that he shows you kind of like what you were talking about, how you have a chain of things that have to get done before you release a product or whatever. He kind of talks about that on a personal level, and he talks about, you know, like how to get your kind of your stuff together, you know, to be where you want to be. And I find that book to be one of the most inspiring books that's out there, because also it's very tangible. I didn't, you know, a book like The Secret doesn't resonate with me, because I don't believe if you sit on a couch and envision a big house and envision driving a Ferrari and envision these things that they automatically come to you. I believe that you're not taking responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in that. So these books that kind of like try to make you feel good, you know, I believe in positive thinking 100%, but I like a book like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People because it gives you a framework, a no-nonsense framework in which you can develop the types of things you need to bring your career where you want to go.
Nice. For the drummer, now you've already said a lot of tips, but maybe we can try and no, it's good. Maybe we can try and get it down to one. But for the drummer who really wants to do shows, do what you do. Like, what's the biggest piece of advice you could give them? As far as practice or networking, or what is it?
Well, networking, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, don't suck, be cool, have drive. I constantly go back to that.
Yeah.
Because it very simplifies all the myriad of things you have to get together. So let's say a drummer wants to begin playing shows professionally with artists, with his own band or her own band or anything like that. There's countless roads to that. You have to develop what your journey is going to be. Is your journey going to be in Kansas City, Missouri, and you want to play in the Kansas City, Missouri thing? Well, okay. So what's going on in Kansas City? Do you go to shows? If you don't go to shows, then you're not going to know like the people that are kind of out there. For me, a way that I kind of got in there was through teching. You know, I didn't start teching drums because I like carrying cases.
Yeah.
I started teching drums because for me, I thought it was a great apprenticeship. So when I got the chance to tech for Terry Bozzio in Sweden, I jumped at it. Now, how did that happen? So I'm sitting in Dia, Sweden. It's a town of 2,000 people. So if there's drummers out there, they're like, well, I'm in a small town or whatever. You can't get smaller than Dia, man. Like you blink, you've driven through it. And it's a tiny, and I'm a Canadian living in Sweden. Like, what? You know? So I heard that Terry Bozzio was coming to Scandinavia. Where did I hear it? I don't remember now. I saw an ad in a magazine or I saw something somewhere that he was coming to Scandinavia. And so I went down to Copenhagen, which is about a two and a half hour trip. Copenhagen's quite a big city in Denmark, and I went to the drum store where he was starting his clinic tour, and I said, hi, I'm Canadian, and I love Terry Bozzio, and I want to tech for him for free. I want to like help you guys out. I speak a little Swedish, which is kind of like Danish, and you know, I'll be a part of it. And they were like, yeah, that'd be great, because I mean, at that time his kit wasn't what it was, but it was still getting pretty big. So I showed up the day of, met to me the best drummer in the world, and he was the kindest man I'd ever met, and he was so and all of a sudden I'm teching for Terry Bozzio. I didn't get paid, I didn't do it for money, I got there to kind of be around the type of thing I wanted to be. So went through that, and that kind of like started a whole teching thing, because then when I came back to Vancouver, and I know how to tune, because I'd worked in music stores and that kind of thing, so I knew how to tune, I knew how to put together drums and that kind of stuff. So then when, for instance, Matt Fournette from Loverboy came in one day, and he was like, yeah, I need a tech. You any good? And I'm like, what, tech for Terry Bozzio? He's like, yeah, that's good. And then I'm with Loverboy, and then I'm with Social Distortion, and then I'm with like, you know, and then I'm doing teching, and then start teching in the studios and that kind of thing, you know. So when a super big name drummer would come through Vancouver to record in one of our like myriad of studios, so many studios here, I'd get the first call, and I'd go in because they knew that I wouldn't freak out, I wouldn't be rude, or I wouldn't, you know, I'd do my job and keep my head down. And invariably I'd get to hang out with these drummers, and I created lifelong relationships with them. You know, so that was part of networking and that kind of thing. So if somebody wants to break into that, then you must seek to understand what that is and be around that. That means going to shows. If it means like, if you're in a new town and you just moved there and you want to be in the cover scene, then go to wherever the best cover band is, figure out who the leader is, introduce yourself, and say, you know, I'm really trying to break in. So if you guys ever need a sub, maybe I could get your set list and I could learn you're set. Yeah. And then I'll be like ready to go. You call me, I'm ready to go. That kind of proactivity, that kind of, you know, taking responsibility always shines, always looks good. So if I wanted to do that, that's what I do. I'd be like, may I have your set list? I'm going to learn that. Now, I'm a terrible cover drummer. I actually look at the cover guys as being amazing. I get calls to do it every now and again, to sub and that kind of thing. But I'm not really good at it because I'm a terrible chameleon. Yeah. I sound like me. No matter what I do, I sound like me. You know, it used to drive me crazy. I used to wish I sounded like Manu Katché. Well, I don't play anything like Manu Katché, but I mean, like, I wanted to sound that. I was trying to use the sticks. I was trying to like use his cymbals, all the splashes and everything. And one day I just kind of was like, I'm me. Like, this is how it comes out. And it comes out like, you know, Animal from the Muppets. Well, whatever. that's me. I take responsibility, and I like it now. Yeah. You know.
Cool. So what's the drummer's role in a band situation? Like, what's the biggest thing that they need to focus on?
When I was studying with Kim Plainfield in New York, he put it, no matter who thinks they're the leader of the band, the drummer is the leader of the band. And that is how we kind of have to play it. I'm always very, very respectful to who the leader is. I'm always very, like, you know, like, always work for them. Yeah. I deliver what they want in a professional manner. But I have to be the backbone. People have to be comfortable. You know, we're kind of like, when you're playing music in a group, you're kind of jumping off a cliff together. And the more I can be solid and the more I can know my stuff and be calm, the more that resonates and radiates to the other members in the band. Yeah. We're the goalie in the hockey team. You can't win a Stanley Cup with a crappy goalie, but you can have an amazing goalie in a so-so team and win the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with bands. To be a great band, there has to be a great drummer. There's very few bands that have an okay drummer. You know, all the other players don't have to be great, but the drummer's got to be solid, and it's got to deliver precisely what's needed for that gig. Mm-hmm.
So how important it is for a drummer, is it to specialize in a certain area of music? I know you said you don't generally do the cover thing, because you just sound like yourself. Yeah. But do you think a drummer should learn all styles? Do you think a drummer should specialize because the market is now more competitive than ever?
Well, I don't know that the market's more competitive than ever, because it's always been competitive. The music industry is bloody competitive, so it's always been that way. So just like notice, like it's not an issue. Yeah. It's don't dwell on that, because it is. So the next thing, okay. So for me to learn all the other styles that I possibly can has been very helpful. I don't ever get calls for Afro-Cuban, but I know it, and it's helped in my other drumming. Because if somebody says, you know, I'd like a little calypso on the end, I'll be like, oh, okay, they're thinking this, and I can add it. I just have a lot. Because of all the different styles of music I've learned, I have a very large vocabulary, and I'm not afraid to use it. You know, if I'm playing in the studio and I hear that they want a certain sound, and I'm kind of like tuned into what the songwriter wants, I'll pick a brush in one hand and a mallet in the other, and try to create a texture underneath that with that. Like, I'm not scared to do that. But I also accept if I don't get the same calls that, you know, Mike McCalco gets, you know, he does these giant orchestral things with David Foster and these kind of things. But, you know, I just accept that I'm not going to get that call. Does Mike have, you know, abilities that I don't? Well, yes and no. But I mean, it's the specializing thing, you know, kind of just happens. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, you know, like, we know actors that are cops in every movie. You know what I mean? Like, they always end up playing a cop, or this guy always ends up being a lawyer. And, you know, like, he can't, it's like when we watch some of our comedic actors, some of our famous comedic actors suddenly try to do a drama and it just doesn't sit right. Sometimes you just got to accept it. Like the way I play suits a style of music real well, and I just kind of accept it. And if that means I've specialized, maybe it means I've specialized. But I mean, on my own practice, I'm trying to learn jazz. I'm trying to learn Chris Dave's licks. I'm trying to learn these types of things. But I doubt I'm going to get calls for that. You know, I have a dream that I'll retire in Vienna and play jazz, you know, when I'm like 60. So I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's 20 years later and you're watching, you're like, he's a really good jazz drummer. I don't know, man. You know.
Never know. Okay, let's talk a little bit about just practical stuff and practical information for the viewers watching that they, when they do start charging or start getting into the scene,
right?
Some of those types of tips. And so, if someone calls you and they want you to play a set or a session or whatever, what's your rate for like an evening or?
Oh, but mine is different.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and what town are we in, and what's the going rate with that town? The one thing that whatever town you're in, talk to the drummers that are doing the thing that you're going to do, and to get a feel for what they charge. I tend to charge union scale.
Yeah.
It just turns into that. It works like it's $380 for 4 hours in the studio, I think it is. You know, so I mean, that can be really difficult for people, and because the union rules can be ridiculous, like I need a lunch break, half hour, and you better provide it, and all this kind of stuff. So, and after we're done, you better like provide to my pension and that kind of stuff. Like those days are kind of gone. So I mean, for recording, I do $200 a song. That works in Vancouver. That wouldn't necessarily work in Kansas, and probably doesn't work in LA. But the one thing I hear from drummers all over the world: don't try to get work by undercutting other drummers.
Yeah.
Don't be like, find out that this drummer charges $1,000 for a session, and you go up to them and be like, I'll do it for $100. Because it can ruin relationships immediately. And the last thing you want is for, I mean, I knew, like for instance, I knew a drummer that was, he was from the States and he was recording here, and another guy too. There was a big producer that was out of Vancouver for a long time, and he would have demo drummers. He'd have guys come in to play on his demos before he presented them to really big acts. And I mean, I knew that because I did a session with them, but for something else, so I was getting paid what I get paid. But they were kind of joking around how little they pay the other guys. Like, these guys, like, they don't make any money. Like, whatever, we'll pay them, you know, and they were almost making fun of them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they didn't respect them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, so you have to first know what everyone else is charging. Get a feel for what everyone else is charging and be in that ballpark. Because anytime I've ever seen somebody try to undercut to get work, it's backfired in their face. Because they never, if I come in and I go like, guys, I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to play this cover gig tonight for $50. Well, now I'm a $50 cover gig drummer. Yeah. I'm never going to get $200. Because I've created that. That's what I. That's what I'm worth.
Perceived value of what you're worth.
And it's a perceived value. Yeah. I'm not as good a drummer. I know a local drummer that he likes to say that he's the best value for his price point kind of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell are you saying? Like that you're just saying that you're going to stay there, and that if some big band comes through, you know, I had like Bob Mayo tell me this like almost 20 years ago. Bob Mayo's the keyboard player for Peter Frampton. And he told me, he's like that's something you could never do. Like, that was advice he gave to me. He's like, never undercut, because you'll never be able to get back up. You know, you're always going to be that guy that's cheap, you know, so always have value, but don't be ridiculous. Like, somebody can't come into Vancouver and be like, well, Jay charges $200 a song, I'll charge $200 a song, but they have no resume. Yeah. Like, they're not going to get anywhere, but they can charge $100, and I mean, that kind of works out. But that's not $50 compared to my $200. Yeah. It's you know, it's fair. So I mean, that is a tricky thing. Yeah. Now, here's the other issue that's difficult: is actually getting paid. Don't be afraid to ask for your damn money. Yeah. And it's a weird thing because I mean, like a lot of acts, like, just, you know, like, they just kind of forget you, and they just kind of like, especially like ones with money. Sometimes, like, I mean, I'll do things for people that have deep pockets, and they'll just kind of like forget about it. I'll be like, oh man, I did one record for a huge band on Virgin, and it took me 3 months to get paid, and I went through 4 or 5 different accountants. I went through Virgin UK, I went through Virgin US out of New York. It was the biggest headache in the world. Had I known how much work it was, I would have charged double, because I put in twice the effort. Now, next time Virgin, like, I'm doing a Virgin thing, I'm going to be straight up like, you know what? Last time I worked for you guys, I didn't get paid for 3 months. No. Yeah. And when I've done that, generally like, no, it won't be a problem, and then that gets fixed. Yeah. You have to stand up for yourself. When you make an agreement, for money, you deliver on your side and you expect to be delivered on their side.
Yeah.
If there's anything weird, stand up for yourself. Don't be mousy.
Yeah.
Because, man, they'll just run over you.
Yeah.
Too many drummers out back waiting for the gig.
I agree. So on this topic of pay, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, what's the most you've ever been paid for a single gig or tour?
Single gig or tour. Because I would always be paid by the week.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there wasn't ever really any bonuses. So I average on tour, I average about $2,000 a week, and that seems to be where a lot of people are. But it depends on the gig. Yeah, there hasn't been a huge payday. Like, that's more if you're a band member.
Yeah.
You know, so that means you're paying everybody, and then whatever's left, you guys split up.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, I've known drummers easily making $20,000, $30,000 for one gig.
Yeah.
Easily. Like, you play a couple hours and you get that money, like corporate gigs and that kind of thing. I knew there's one band, Canadian band, and we were on tour with them, and we were doing a corporate gig. It was sponsored by a beer company. Mm-hmm. And it was a big payday for this band, and there was a bonus. Like, you know, contracts, often you get a bonus for sellout. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're part of a band. And the singer went up and said, "I hate that beer." The beer company that was promoting the event. "I think everyone should drink this beer," which was a completely different beer. Mm-hmm. Well, dude, they came down and they were like, "Yeah, you're not getting your bonus now." Like, that was BS. You're not getting your bonus. Mm. Well, the drummer lost out on $9,000 or something because of that, because of what the singer said. Oh, can you imagine?
That's crazy.
You know, so instead of making $29,000, he made $20,000 that day or something. It was just like, but you know. Also, we got to point out that the fortunes have changed in the music industry. So there isn't like these giant paydays for most people as there was.
Yeah.
Now I think most people are making between like $2,000 and $5,000 a week, and then, you know, for guys like Steve Gadd or Kenny Aronoff, like, they'll start making near 20.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, like, it's a different thing. Everyone's purse tightening all around in every industry, and the music business is no exception.
Yeah. So the most efficient way to get gigs, and I want to, the word efficient is important because obviously everyone's looking for the best use of their time.
Absolutely.
And so for a band or for a drummer, you know, what's the best way for them to actually get a gig?
Well, now it's online.
Yeah.
So, let's say it's a drummer. Okay, so because bands is something different. Bands, you start dealing with independent blogs in different cities, and you start dealing with all this kind of stuff, and it's a different thing than being a drummer and trying to get hired. So as a drummer trying to get hired, or any musician trying to get hired, what's your web presence? Mm-hmm. Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a Twitter account? Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I mean, these things now are expected. It's not an option. You're expected to have a YouTube channel. I have to be able to if I'm a singer-songwriter and I'm looking for a drummer, I have to be able to put you into Google and and know you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think everybody should have a YouTube channel with a well-done video or videos of them either playing drums or playing the songs. It's a great time. Like, I mean, I think a lot of guys have done quite well playing the covers. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, like, put up some... People just want to see that you can play. People just want to see that you can do stuff. Now, the Twitter and the Facebook kind of thing, that's vital, and I see a lot of people misuse it. Mm-hmm. Then you can look it up. It's the difference between push marketing and pull marketing. Push marketing is, come to my gig, hire me. Yeah. I'm available this weekend. That's pushing. Pulling is, you're going to come look at my Facebook page and you're going to come look at my Twitter because it's giving you something. Yeah. If you ever see my Twitter, so my Twitter is @JDeachman, it's my name, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I'm doing comedy on there. I'm talking about Formula One. I'm talking about, you know, Call of Duty. I'm talking about all sorts of stuff. Mm-hmm. Then every 20th tweet, I'll put something up about my drumming. Mm-hmm. But I don't talk about drums all that much. Now and again, I put something up there. Now and again, I'll say, I'm playing here, come on down. But that's rare. Normally, I'm saying crazy stuff that just to entertain people. Because I want you to want to watch me in your Facebook feed because I say ridiculous things that make you giggle.
Yeah.
I want that. Because then when I go to say, you know, I'm playing this show, would you come down? Then you're checking it out, and you don't feel like I'm giving you something all the time. And so that's the way I approach them, and that's the way I think drummers and bands misuse them, is they just go like, this is what we're doing today, this is what's going on, this is what's happening, we're doing this show, like we're in this. It's boring, man. I don't want to, like why, whereas one drummer I love to follow, Sekou Lumumba, out of Toronto, who played with Bedouin Soundclash, and he plays with 24/7 Spies now in New York. He's an amazing drummer. His tweets and his Facebook thing put me on the ground. They're so funny.
Yeah.
He puts ridiculous pictures up. He puts all this stuff, and then every now and again he's like, I'm playing with 24/7 Spies in Brooklyn. Come on down. And I mean, but generally he doesn't go anywhere near it. And I've brought that up several times, that you have to understand that today's music industry, people are getting inundated with buy this, come to this, buy my record, and that kind of thing. Yeah. So you got to pull them in, and you got to create a relationship with people you don't know somehow, to engage them and make what you do want to tell them resonate.
Yeah, cool. Well, that kind of brings me to the end of the questions. Just to end it off, do you mind just like looking at the camera and just some final words or final thoughts to the drummer watching, the aspiring drummer who wants to play shows?
Okay. Many years ago, I saw an interview with Dave Weckl. I think it was on one of his videos, where he looked at camera and he's like, if you want to do this because there's room for everybody. And I really do feel there's room for everybody in the music business. It's going to be tough. There's going to be some hardship. But if you're willing to make the sacrifice, get your personal stuff together, and be a professional before you are a professional, I know you can do it. Good luck.
Cool, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Right on. See you guys later.